I'm Madison Williams, 24 years old, and I never thought my own parents would treat me like a tenant instead of their daughter. That evening in our pristine Connecticut living room still haunts me. My father's face turned crimson as he slammed the spreadsheet onto our mahogany coffee table. My mother stood beside him, disappointment etched into her carefully maintained features. The ultimatum hanging in the air between us was clear: $800 monthly rent or 30 days to vacate the only home I'd ever known. My world collapsed as I realized blood ties had somehow transformed into business transactions. Before I continue my story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Drop your location in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and let me know if your family ever put a price tag on their love. I grew up in a picture-perfect colonial house in suburban Connecticut, complete with a white picket fence and professionally landscaped gardens. My childhood was comfortable by any standard. Richard Williams, my father, built his reputation as a formidable business executive who never accepted failure as an option. Patricia, my mother, had traded her promising career as a corporate lawyer to manage our household with the same precision she once applied to legal briefs. Our family album showcases vacations to Europe, sailing trips, and country club memberships, all the trappings of upper-middle-class success. But those smiling photos never captured the expectations that came attached to our privileged lifestyle. My earliest memory of creating art was at 5 years old, finger painting in kindergarten while other kids napped. Mrs. Johnson called my parents in to show them my work. Abstract swirls that apparently showed remarkable spatial awareness and color theory intuition. I remember my mother's tight smile as she thanked the teacher while subtly wiping paint residue from my hands with antibacterial wipes. "Art is a wonderful hobby, Madison," she said on the drive home, "but successful people need serious skills." Throughout elementary school, my drawings and paintings won contests and adorned hallways. My parents acknowledged these achievements with perfunctory praise before redirecting the conversation to math test scores or science fair projects. By middle school, the pattern was clear. Creative pursuits belonged in the extracurricular box, not the future career category. High school brought advanced placement courses in subjects I tolerated but never loved. Meanwhile, I spent lunch periods in the art room, weekends at community workshops, and nights sketching instead of sleeping. My portfolio grew as my parents' patience diminished. Art schools are expensive paths to unemployment, Dad announced during my junior year when college brochures began arriving. Business, law, medicine. Those are investments in your future. Nevertheless, I applied to prestigious art programs behind their backs. When acceptance letters arrived, including one from my dream school with a partial scholarship, I gathered my courage and revealed my plans over dinner. The argument lasted 3 hours. "We won't fund this fantasy," my father insisted. "You're throwing away your potential," my mother added. Yet somehow, after weeks of cold silence and tearful negotiations, they relented, with conditions. They would pay tuition with the understanding that this was an investment they expected returned through a sensible career after graduation. I agreed, naive enough to believe passion and practicality could eventually align. College proved transformative. For the first time, my artistic abilities were celebrated rather than tolerated. Professors praised my distinctive style that blended photorealism with surrealist elements. I specialized in portraits that revealed subjects' hidden emotions through subtle environmental details. My senior showcase earned substantial attention from local critics, but no immediate job offers materialized. 4 months after graduation, with student loan grace periods evaporating and no career prospects in sight, I returned to my childhood bedroom. "Just until I find something permanent," I promised. My parents' disappointment manifested immediately. The Johnsons' daughter graduated from state college and already has benefits at her accounting firm, Mom commented over breakfast 3 days after my return. Stanford just featured Michael's banking internship in their alumni newsletter, Dad added, referencing my cousin whose business degree had translated into an immediate Wall Street position. I secured a barista position at Westfield Artisan Coffee, a local cafe that attracted a creative clientele. The job barely covered my phone bill and art supplies, but provided structure while I applied to galleries, design firms, and teaching positions. The rejections accumulated in my email inbox. Too inexperienced. Position filled internally. Your style doesn't align with our current direction. Meanwhile, my late-night painting sessions in the garage, the only space my mother allowed for messy art supplies, became a point of contention. The electricity isn't free, Dad remarked, flipping the light switch as I worked on portfolio pieces at midnight. Responsible adults keep normal hours, Mom added the following morning when I stumbled bleary-eyed to the coffee maker. 8 weeks after moving home, I overheard them in the kitchen. We can't support a starving artist indefinitely, Dad hissed. She needs motivation to find a real job, Mom replied. She's becoming a financial burden we didn't plan for. I slipped back upstairs before they noticed me, tears streaming down my face as I realized my childhood bedroom had transformed from sanctuary to charity case. The first proper confrontation erupted during Sunday dinner, precisely 2 months after my return. Dad cleared his throat as I reached for seconds. "We need to discuss your career strategy," he announced. "It's been 60 days with no progress. I've submitted 37 applications," I defended. "For jobs that don't exist?" Mom interjected. "There's a marketing assistant position at your father's company. The starting salary would cover an apartment." "I didn't spend 4 years studying art to work in corporate marketing," I replied. Dad's fork clattered against fine china. "Then what exactly was the point of our investment?" The word investment hung between us, the same term used for his stock portfolio and real estate holdings. My education reduced to a failing business venture. The next morning, I discovered printouts of job listings on my pillow: retail manager trainee, administrative assistant, insurance claims processor, each highlighted with helpful notes like health benefits and growth potential. 2 months after moving back home, family dinners became interrogation sessions. What had once been my favorite family tradition now filled me with dread. "Any interviews this week?" Dad would begin, cutting into his perfectly cooked steak. "Not yet, but I submitted applications to 3 galleries and a community arts center," I'd answer, knowing this wasn't what he wanted to hear. "The Prescott's son just got promoted at the bank," Mom would add. After only 6 months, each dinner conversation circled the same drain: jobs, financial stability, practical careers, connections they could leverage if only I'd abandon my artistic phase. The spreadsheet tracking my job search efforts expanded to include columns for salary ranges, benefits packages, and career advancement metrics, none of which applied to the arts positions I actually wanted. My bedroom, once my private retreat, no longer felt like my space. Mom began leaving career advice books on my desk. Dressing for success in the corporate world appeared after I wore paint-splattered jeans to a family lunch. Networking for introverts materialized following my quiet performance at Dad's company barbecue. The constant pressure eroded my creativity and confidence. I found myself staring at blank canvases for hours, paralyzed by the voice in my head that sounded increasingly like my father. "This won't pay the bills." Anxiety attacks became regular occurrences, usually striking at 3 a.m. as I calculated how many coffee shop shifts would cover student loan payments. I crafted budget spreadsheets that never balanced, no matter how many expenses I eliminated. The single bright spot in this darkening landscape was Ryan Cooper. He appeared at Westfield Artisan Coffee every Tuesday and Thursday, ordering a complicated pour-over that required intense concentration to prepare correctly. "You're the only barista who gets it right," he commented one morning, leaving an unusually generous tip. Over the following weeks, our interactions extended beyond coffee orders. Ryan revealed he worked as a graphic designer at a local marketing firm while pursuing photography on the side. When I mentioned my art degree, he asked to see my portfolio. "You're bringing something unique to portraiture," he said after scrolling through images on my phone. "The way you capture environmental details that reflect the subject's internal state, it's incredibly perceptive." For the first time since graduation, someone understood my artistic vision. When Ryan mentioned his friend Michael Bennett owned a small gallery downtown and was planning a showcase for emerging artists, hope flickered to life. "Send me your portfolio link," Ryan said. "I'll forward it to Michael tonight." That evening, I practically floated through dinner, barely registering my parents' usual commentary about suitable employment options. You seem distracted, Mom noted, frowning at my untouched salmon. I might have an opportunity to showcase my work at a local gallery, I shared, immediately regretting my enthusiasm when Dad's eyebrows shot up. A showcase doesn't pay bills, he responded. Galleries take commissions, even if anything sells, which is unlikely in this economy. It's exposure, I countered. Networking. Networking for what? More unpaid opportunities? Mom sighed. Madison, we want you to succeed. But art is so speculative. My cousin Lauren just made junior partner, Dad added, referencing my ever-successful relative, whose law career was apparently the gold standard for achievement. She's putting a down payment on a condo next month. I'm not Lauren, I snapped, abandoning dinner to retreat to the garage studio. 2 days later, Michael Bennett emailed me directly. He loved my portfolio and offered wall space in an upcoming showcase featuring 5 local artists. The catch: I needed to create 3 new pieces specifically for the exhibition within 3 weeks. I threw myself into painting, spending every moment away from the coffee shop in my garage studio. The collection took shape around the theme of masked expectations, portraits of people whose external presentation dramatically contrasted with their environmental context, revealing internal conflict. The night before my submission deadline, I worked until dawn to complete the final piece, my strongest work yet. Too exhausted to clean up properly, I left paint tubes scattered across the workbench and brushes soaking in solution. Mom's shrill voice woke me 3 hours later. Madison, the garage is a disaster. Your father nearly stepped in paint getting his golf clubs. The ensuing argument escalated beyond the messy garage to encompass my lack of responsibility, unrealistic expectations, and disregard for others' space. When I mentioned missing dinner was necessary to complete work for the gallery showcase, Dad's dismissive response cut deep. Another unpaid project taking priority over family obligations or finding stable employment. This isn't sustainable. Art is my employment, I insisted. This showcase could lead to sales and commissions. And if it doesn't? Mom challenged. Then I'll try something else in the creative field. I won't abandon my degree to sit in a cubicle pushing papers. Dad's face darkened. Your cousin Lauren sits in an office earning 6 figures while you're making minimum wage pouring coffee. I'm not Lauren, I shouted, tears streaming down my face. I never wanted to be. I want to create meaningful work that moves people, not accumulate wealth for its own sake. Passion doesn't pay bills, Dad stated flatly. Perhaps it's time you learned that lesson firsthand. That evening, Mom knocked on my bedroom door with a printed sheet of paper. Your father and I have been discussing how to help you understand adult responsibilities, she began, voice artificially calm. We've calculated a fair monthly contribution toward household expenses. The paper detailed a reduced rent of $800 monthly plus expectations to contribute toward groceries and utilities. This is about teaching financial responsibility, she explained. Much less than you'd pay for an apartment. I stared at her, speechless. The message was clear. My presence had been recategorized from daughter to tenant, my value reduced to financial contribution. We're trying to help you understand real-world economics, Mom added when I remained silent. By charging your child rent? I finally managed. By preparing you for independence, she corrected, leaving the paper on my desk before quietly closing the door. 3 months after graduation, my artwork hung on the pristine walls of Bennett Gallery downtown. The showcase opening attracted a decent crowd, local art enthusiasts, friends of the featured artists, and curious passers-by lured by wine and cheese. My collection occupied the back wall, 3 large canvases representing months of emotional labor. Michael Bennett introduced me to several attendees, praising my distinctive perspective and technical precision. Visitors lingered before my pieces, sometimes returning for second looks. Ryan attended for moral support, his quiet presence anchoring me through waves of anxiety and hope. You've created something remarkable, he whispered, squeezing my hand as we observed people discussing my work. For a few magical hours, I felt like a legitimate artist, exactly who I'd spent 4 years becoming. Then reality reasserted itself as the evening ended without a single sales inquiry for my pieces. The other featured artists celebrated purchases, I packed away business cards no one had taken. Sales aren't everything, Michael consoled, helping me apply small red, available for purchase dots to my price list for the remainder of the exhibition. Your work provoked the most conversation. Sometimes that leads to opportunities down the road. His kindness couldn't offset my crushing disappointment. Ryan offered to drive me home, but I declined, needing solitary time on the bus to process my emotions. People loved your work, he insisted before we parted. Art success isn't instant. Tell that to my parents, I whispered. When the 2-week exhibition concluded, Michael called with bittersweet news. Numerous visitors had commented positively on my collection, but no sales materialized. My canvases returned home, leaning against my bedroom wall as expensive reminders of unrealized potential. Meanwhile, Ryan's presence in my life expanded beyond coffee shop interactions. He began texting daily, sharing articles about emerging artists and gallery opportunities. Our first official date happened at a small museum featuring contemporary portraiture, Ryan's thoughtful attempt to reinvigorate my artistic passion after the showcase disappointment. Your parents don't understand creative careers take time to develop, he said over dinner afterward. Most successful artists faced years of rejection before breaking through. My parents don't measure success in artistic terms, I replied. They see dollar signs and stability. Then they're missing the entire point of making art. Our relationship blossomed even as my family situation deteriorated. Ryan represented everything my parents didn't understand. Valuing creative fulfillment over financial metrics. Pursuing passion alongside practicality. At home, my parents' demeanor grew increasingly cold. Conversations became transactional, focusing on household logistics rather than personal connection. Dad began leaving his home office door open during my coffee shop shifts, pointedly taking business calls where I could overhear discussions of profit margins and investment returns. My financial situation worsened when the coffee shop reduced hours during the slow season. My already meager income dropped by 20%. Forcing impossible choices between art supplies and saving toward rent. I began skipping lunches, calculating the precise amount of gas needed for essential trips, and abandoning any social activities that weren't free. One afternoon, retrieving mail from our box, I discovered an envelope addressed to me. Inside, loan statements detailed my education debt with bold red letters. Payment due. The grace period had ended. Reality demanded acknowledgement. That evening, entering our living room where my parents sat reviewing financial statements, I intended to discuss loan payment strategies. Instead, Dad gestured to the chair across from them, expression grim. Sit down, Madison. We need to discuss your living situation. Mom placed a detailed spreadsheet on the coffee table, columns of numbers categorizing expenses, food, utilities, housing, car insurance, and most prominently, education loans. We've supported you through 4 years of college and 3 months of post-graduation exploration, Dad began, voice clipped and businesslike. That support totals over $160,000 when accounting for tuition, housing, meals, and incidentals. We agreed to pay for my education, I countered, heart-pounding. As an investment in your future ability to support yourself, he corrected. Yet here you are, working part-time at a coffee shop with no concrete plans for professional advancement. Mom leaned forward, her attorney persona fully engaged. We've calculated reasonable monthly contributions based on market rates for room, board, and utilities. The spreadsheet's bottom line glared at me. $800 monthly. This begins next month, Dad continued. 30 days notice, as legally required. The implications stunned me. You're treating me like a tenant? We're treating you like an adult, Mom corrected. Adults pay their way. Tears blurred my vision. I'm your daughter. Family is supposed to support each other through difficult transitions. We've supported your choices for 22 years, Dad replied coldly. That support wasn't unlimited. So it's conditional on my career choices? My voice cracked. If I'd become a lawyer like Lauren, would you be charging me rent while I established myself? Mom's expression hardened. Lauren worked 3 internships during college and secured her position before graduation. She prepared for success rather than pursuing impractical dreams. Art isn't impractical. It's my passion and purpose. Passion doesn't pay bills, Dad repeated his familiar refrain. 800 monthly or find alternative housing within 30 days. Your choice. I stared at these strangers wearing my parents' faces. Something fundamental had shifted. The unconditional love I'd taken for granted revealed itself as a business arrangement with terms I'd allegedly violated. Family shouldn't come with an invoice, I whispered. Neither should adulthood, Dad countered. Consider this your introduction to fiscal reality. Mom's eyes glistened with unshed tears, her resolve visibly wavering before Dad's hand covered hers in silent solidarity. Their united front was clear. This wasn't a negotiation, but a final decision. I stumbled upstairs to my childhood bedroom, now reframed as rented accommodation with an unaffordable price tag. The walls adorned with achievement certificates and family photographs suddenly felt like a museum of fictional relationships, artifacts from a family that valued achievement over authenticity, financial success over personal fulfillment. My phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. How did it go with your parents? I couldn't find words to describe how thoroughly my world had collapsed. Sleep evaded me that night as the ultimatum echoed through my mind. $800 monthly or 30 days to vacate. I pulled out my laptop at 2 a.m., creating a budget spreadsheet that confirmed the impossible mathematics of my situation. Coffee shop income. $1,100 monthly. On good months. Rent demand. $800. Phone bill. $75. Student loan minimum. $350. Art supplies. $100. Bare minimum. Transportation. $120. The numbers refused to cooperate, leaving nothing for food, emergencies, or savings. Even eliminating art supplies, essentially abandoning my practice, wouldn't bridge the gap. I considered employment alternatives, searching job listings for positions requiring my qualifications. Administrative assistant, receptionist, retail manager. Each offered slightly higher wages than barista work, but required abandoning flexible hours that accommodated artistic pursuits. The subtext of my parents' ultimatum became clear. Choose financial stability by sacrificing art, or choose art and sacrifice family support. Around 3 a.m., I called Ryan, voice breaking as I explained the situation. My apartment has a couch, he offered immediately. It's yours for as long as you need. I can't impose like that. It's not imposing, it's supporting someone I care about. His kindness unleashed the tears I'd been suppressing. They're my parents. How can they just stop being parents? Because I chose art over accounting. They haven't stopped loving you, Ryan said gently. They're operating from a completely different value system. They equate financial success with worthiness. So I'm unworthy because I make lattes and portraits instead of spreadsheets and presentations? No. You're brave enough to pursue meaning over money. That's rare. After hanging up, I wandered through our silent house, seeing it through new eyes. The formal living room where we entertained business associates rather than friends. The dining room with its perfectly polished silver used for networking dinners rather than joyful gatherings. The pristine kitchen where meals were prepared according to schedule rather than appetite or creativity. My childhood bedroom told a different story. Walls once covered with my artwork had been gradually replaced with academic certificates and professional development awards. Only one corner remained authentically mine. A small bulletin board covered with sketches and photographs. Behind my desk, I discovered something I'd forgotten, my first serious portrait, created at age 12, professionally framed by my parents for my 13th birthday. The subject was our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Abernathy. Her wrinkled face rendered with childish technique but startling emotional accuracy. I remembered my parents' genuine pride at the unveiling. Dad's arm around my shoulder, as he praised my remarkable talent. When had pride in my abilities transformed into disappointment in my choices? When had their support become conditional? Or had it always been transactional, and I'd simply been meeting the unspoken terms until now? I texted my grandmother Eleanor the next morning, the only family member who consistently encouraged my artistic pursuits. Her response came within minutes. Come for lunch tomorrow. Eleanor's modest home contrasted sharply with my parents' showcase residence. Quilts she'd made covered comfortable furniture, and her refrigerator displayed my artwork alongside family photos. Your father called, she admitted, serving homemade soup. He's concerned about your refusal to face reality. His version of reality, I clarified. One where art has no value unless it generates immediate profit. Eleanor sighed. Richard was always intensely practical, even as a child. He measures worth through financial metrics, because that's how his father measured him. She squeezed my hand. But that doesn't make him right. What should I do, Grandma? What can you live with, Madison? Not just survive, truly live with. Will you resent yourself for abandoning art to please your parents? Will you resent them for forcing that choice? Or can you forgive yourself and them while choosing your own path? That evening, I created the most honest budget spreadsheet of my life, categorizing not just finances, but emotional costs. Staying home, plus physical security, familiar environment, plus potential family reconciliation, abandoning artistic practice, resentment and damaged relationship, loss of self-respect and authenticity, leaving, plus creative freedom and integrity, plus building independent life on my terms, financial insecurity and struggle, potential long-term family estrangement, fear and uncertainty. Both options carried tremendous costs. Neither promised happiness. Yet, as I stared at my calculations, one truth emerged with startling clarity. I could possibly rebuild a relationship with my parents someday, but I could never reclaim my self-respect if I abandoned my identity for financial security. My decision crystallized in that moment. I would leave. The next morning, I wrote my parents a letter, pouring out everything my voice would likely fail to express in person. Dear Mom and Dad, I've decided to move out rather than pay rent to live in my childhood home. This isn't about money. It's about recognizing that our definitions of success and value have fundamentally diverged. You raised me to pursue excellence, to believe in my abilities, and to work diligently toward goals. I've applied those lessons faithfully, just not toward the goals you expected. My artistic practice isn't a hobby or phase but the culmination of lifelong passion and 4 years of intensive education that you initially supported. I understand your disappointment that my chosen field doesn't offer the financial security or status you prioritize. I respect that you measure success differently than I do, but I cannot abandon my authentic self to meet your expectations without destroying something essential within me. Thank you for everything you've provided throughout my life. I'll always be grateful for the privileges and opportunities you made possible. I hope someday you'll see that my definition of success, creating work with meaning and integrity, regardless of financial reward, carries its own kind of worth. I'll always love you both, even as I choose a different path. Madison. I placed the letter on my carefully made bed, then began the painful process of sorting my belongings, essential clothing, personal documents, and irreplaceable mementos filled one suitcase. Art supplies and completed works filled another. Everything else, the accumulation of 24 years, remained behind, too voluminous for my uncertain future. My final act before leaving was returning to the portrait of Mrs. Abernathy, carefully wrapping it in a protective cloth before placing it in my art portfolio. This piece represented the last moment of uncomplicated pride my parents had expressed in my artistic ability, a tangible reminder that their love existed, even if currently obscured by disappointment. Standing in my driveway with 2 suitcases and a portfolio, I took one final look at the only home I'd ever known. Then I called a ride-share to Ryan's apartment, stepping into terrifying freedom. My courage nearly failed as I stood outside Ryan's apartment door, suitcases beside me, hand frozen mid-knock. The magnitude of my decision crashed over me. I was homeless, voluntarily separated from my family, with minimal savings and no stable income. Before I could retreat, the door swung open. Ryan's roommate, Jessica Martinez, stood there, surprise registering on her face before understanding dawned. Ryan said you might need a place, she said, stepping aside. Come in. Their apartment was everything my parents' house wasn't, lived in, creative, slightly messy. Photography equipment shared space with graphic design, textbooks, and music equipment. Art covered walls instead of certificates and diplomas. The couch is yours for as long as you need, Ryan insisted, helping arrange my suitcases in the corner of their living room. Jessica's cool with it. Jessica nodded. Been there. My parents wanted me to be an engineer. Now I'm a music producer, and we barely speak. Family stuff is complicated. The kindness of virtual strangers contrasted sharply with my parents' conditional support, bringing fresh tears I couldn't suppress. I've never been homeless before, I whispered. You're not homeless, Ryan corrected gently. You're in transition. That first week tested my resolve hourly. I continued working coffee shop shifts. Terrified coworkers would discover my situation. Each morning I transformed from couch surfer to functional barista, changing clothes in the cramped employee bathroom and storing essentials in my locker. Financial reality hit harder outside my parents' support system. I sold my laptop first. The MacBook purchased for college assignments fetched enough to contribute toward household groceries for 2 weeks. My designer winter coat, gifted for my 21st birthday, went next, followed by the pearl earrings from high school graduation. Each sale felt like severing another connection to my former life, yet the small contributions toward Ryan and Jessica's household expenses preserved my dwindling dignity. I wasn't a charity case, but a contributing member of our temporary arrangement. Ryan helped set up profiles on freelance artist platforms, photographing my portfolio pieces professionally to showcase online. We spent evenings crafting descriptions and keywords to attract potential clients, my hope cautiously rebuilding with each completed listing. The first rejection arrived 3 days later. A potential client seeking portrait work commented, "Technique, interesting, but style, too unconventional for our needs." More rejections followed, each one eroding my fragile confidence. 2 weeks after leaving home, I locked myself in the coffee shop bathroom during my shift break, silent sobs racking my body as doubt overwhelmed determination. Maybe my parents were right. Maybe artistic talent without commercial appeal was ultimately worthless. That evening, my phone displayed my mother's number. I answered with trembling hands. Madison. Her voice sounded smaller than I remembered. Have you learned your lesson yet? Your room is still available. The unspoken condition hung between us. Return on their terms. Abandon your impractical dreams. Conform to our version of success. I'm figuring things out, I replied, voice steadier than expected. This artistic rebellion is hurting everyone involved. Your father barely sleeps. It's not a rebellion, Mom. It's my career choice. A career generates income, she countered. I'm working on that part. Silence stretched between us before she sighed. The door is open when you're ready to be reasonable. Reasonable. The word echoed after we disconnected. In their worldview, pursuing artistic fulfillment over financial stability was fundamentally unreasonable. Childish defiance rather than courageous authenticity. The conversation strengthened my resolve even as my practical situation deteriorated. Ryan and Jessica's generosity had limits. I couldn't inhabit their couch indefinitely. Scanning apartment listings during breaks revealed discouraging realities. Studio apartments required income 3 times monthly rent, plus security deposits and pristine credit histories. Then Jessica discovered an unexpected opportunity. A room opening in a shared apartment across town. Rent, $475 monthly, including utilities, significantly below market rate. It's in Riverside, she warned. Naming a neighborhood my parents had always instructed me to avoid. But the roommates are solid. Amber's a nurse. Tara's in graduate school. I know them through music circles. Despite misgivings about the location, I arranged to visit that weekend. The building's exterior confirmed my parents' warnings. Graffiti decorated the entryway, security doors showed signs of forced entry attempts, and the hallway carpet bore mysterious stains. Amber Thompson answered the door, her exhausted smile reflecting her night shift schedule. Jessica explained your situation. Come in. The apartment itself was surprisingly pleasant. Clean if worn, decorated with an eclectic mix of secondhand furniture and creative touches. The available room was tiny, barely fitting a twin bed and small desk, but featured a window overlooking a community garden. Neighborhood looks worse than it is, Amber explained. Most people here are working families or students. We look out for each other. Tara Wilson joined us, her academic textbooks spread across the kitchen table. Fair warning, walls are thin, parking's a nightmare, and the radiator clanks all winter. But rents stabilized and we split utilities 3 ways. I toured the apartment, mentally calculating how to fit my life into the available space. My art supplies would require creative storage solutions. Limited natural light would challenge painting conditions. The neighborhood would horrify my parents. Yet the room represented something precious. Independence without complete financial ruin. When would you need to know? I asked. Yesterday, Amber admitted. But we can give you until tomorrow. That night, curled on Ryan's couch, I faced the hardest decision yet. The apartment represented significant compromises on safety, comfort, and working conditions. But it also offered essential stability while building my freelance business. I'd worry about you in that neighborhood, Ryan admitted when I sought his advice. But having your own space might be worth the trade-offs. The next morning, I called Amber and accepted. 3 days later, Ryan helped transport my suitcases and portfolio to my new home. Setting up the tiny room required ruthless prioritization. Bed against the wall, desk under the window for maximum light, art supplies organized in plastic containers beneath the bed. That first night alone, after Amber left for her hospital shift and Tara retreated to her room to study, the magnitude of my choices crashed over me. Distant sirens pierced the darkness as unfamiliar building sounds created an urban lullaby nothing like my suburban childhood home. I cried myself to sleep, grieving the comfortable life I'd abandoned while terrified of the uncertain path ahead. Adjusting to roommate life in Riverside challenged everything I thought I knew about myself. Simple routines became complex negotiations. Bathroom scheduling between 3 working adults required military precision. Kitchen access meant cooking alongside others rather than having the space to myself, and privacy became a luxury rather than expectation. Amber's night shifts at the hospital meant she slept while I was active. Tara's intense graduate studies kept her perpetually stressed and occasionally snappish. Yet both showed kindnesses my parents hadn't during those final weeks. Amber shared leftovers from hospital cafeteria meals, while Tara proofread my freelance proposals and artist statements. The neighborhood revealed itself as Amber had described, rougher in appearance than reality, filled with working families and students making the best of affordable housing. I learned to navigate public transportation routes that connected our apartment to the coffee shop, mentally calculating the dollar value of each trip against my dwindling savings. Financial pressure mounted as I worked double shifts whenever available. Each paycheck disappeared immediately. Rent, student loan, minimum payments, phone bill, groceries. Nothing remained for art supplies, let alone building savings. Creating art became nearly impossible. Physical exhaustion from barista shifts left my hands too shaky for detailed work. The room's inadequate lighting and limited space-constrained technique. Most devastating was the creative paralysis that accompanied constant financial stress. Artistic inspiration withered under survival pressure. Then came the phone call from my father, his tone clinically detached as if addressing a business associate rather than his daughter. "We're removing you from our health insurance policy next month," he announced without preamble. "As an independent adult, you'll need to secure your own coverage." The implications struck immediately. Marketplace health insurance would cost hundreds monthly, an impossible expense on my current budget. Going uninsured meant risking financial catastrophe from even minor medical issues. "Is this really necessary?" I asked, voice small. "Independence means full responsibility," he replied. "We're not maintaining partial support while you reject our guidance." My hands trembled as we disconnected. The message was unmistakable. My choice to pursue art had severed not just financial support, but fundamental parental protection. I was truly on my own. That same week, Michael Bennett called with disappointing news. The second gallery opportunity he'd mentioned had fallen through. The owner's nephew needed exhibition space, he explained apologetically. Family politics trump talent in small galleries. Without new portfolio pieces created since leaving home, my online profiles generated no client interest. Artistic momentum stalled completely as survival consumed all energy and resources. The final blow came when my aging Honda, inherited from grandmother Eleanor when she stopped driving, developed transmission problems during a rainstorm. The repair estimate exceeded the car's value, leaving me vehicle-less and dependent on unreliable public transportation. Walking 45 minutes each way to work during December in Connecticut brought physical misery to match my emotional state. Freezing rain soaked through inadequate boots, leaving my feet perpetually cold and damp. Morning shifts required, leaving while darkness still enveloped the streets, making each commute an exercise in hypervigilance through unfamiliar neighborhoods. Inevitable illness followed, first a persistent cough, then fever and congestion that transformed each breath into painful effort. Without health insurance or paid sick leave, I worked through increasingly severe symptoms until Amber intervened. "You have bacterial bronchitis," she diagnosed after listening to my chest one evening. "You need antibiotics before this becomes pneumonia." "I can't afford urgent care," I admitted. "My hospital offers financial assistance," she replied, helping me complete paperwork that reduced my eventual bill to manageable payments. Amber's nursing background proved invaluable during recovery. She monitored symptoms, prepared simple meals I could keep down, and shared over-the-counter medications from her personal supply. This kindness from someone who'd been a stranger months earlier highlighted the unexpected bonds forming in my new life. Meanwhile, family Christmas celebrations proceeded without me. Social media showed perfectly coordinated decorations at my parents' home, elegantly wrapped gifts beneath their 12-foot tree, and formal dinner settings that would have included me in previous years. Cousin Lauren's engagement announcement garnered effusive family congratulations, her law, career, success, and personal milestone, representing everything my parents valued. New Year's Eve found me alone in my tiny room while Amber worked overnight and Tara visited her boyfriend. Outside, distant fireworks and celebrations punctuated the darkness as I faced the calendars turning with empty pockets and hollowed hope. I stared at blank sketchbook pages, artistic motivation as absent as financial stability. Perhaps this was the universe confirming my parents' assessment. Art was an indulgent dream rather than viable future. Maybe practical careers existed for practical reasons. Maybe passion without profitability was simply unsustainable privilege. My contemplation of surrender was interrupted by knocking. Opening the door revealed Ryan holding takeout containers and a wrapped package. "No one should be alone on New Year's," he said simply. Over noodles from my favorite restaurant, an extravagance I hadn't afforded in months, I confessed my darkest thoughts. "Sometimes I think they were right," I whispered. "Art doesn't pay bills. I'm failing at basic survival, while my artistic career hasn't advanced at all." "You're not failing," Ryan countered. "You're navigating a brutal economic system that undervalues creative work while battling family rejection. That's succeeding against impossible odds. Succeeding would mean creating art and paying rent. You will. Building creative careers takes time most people can't afford without support systems." "Support systems like parents who don't charge rent?" I laughed bitterly. Ryan handed me the wrapped package. Inside, I found professional-grade paints, the brand I'd admiringly mentioned months earlier but couldn't justify purchasing. "You can't abandon your art," he insisted. "It's not just what you do, it's who you are." As midnight approached, Ryan revealed something I'd missed entirely during my isolation. Online reviews from the gallery showing I'd considered a failure. "Michael Bennett sent these links," Ryan explained, scrolling through comments on local arts websites and social media platforms. "Striking emotional resonance in Williams' portrait series. Remarkable technical skill paired with psychological insight. Emerging talent worth following. Critical validation I'd never seen. Perspectives I'd missed while focusing exclusively on sales metrics. Exactly as my parents approached everything." Finally, Ryan showed me an email he'd received that morning from someone who'd attended the exhibition, trying to contact artist Madison Williams regarding commission work. "Do you have current information?" Amid my lowest moment, surrounded by evidence of material failure, an unexpected spark reignited. Someone had seen value in my work, not financial value, but meaningful connection. And that connection might possibly translate into paid work. As fireworks marked midnight, I realized rock bottom contained its own strange gift: the perspective to recognize what truly mattered in measuring success. Not my parents' metrics of status and financial achievement, but creating work that connected with viewers enough that they sought more. For the first time in months, I picked up a brush with purposeful intention rather than obligatory motion. The blank canvas transformed from accusation to invitation. Rock bottom became foundation. The commission request arrived at precisely the right moment, when surrender seemed rational but something stubborn within me refused to quit. The potential client, a local business owner named Catherine, had connected with my portrait of a weathered fisherman displayed in the gallery show. My father was a commercial fisherman for 40 years, her email explained. I'd like a portrait capturing his relationship with the sea as a retirement gift. We arranged consultation at her office, where Catherine showed photographs of her father and described the emotional essence she hoped to capture. The commission offered $500, modest by professional standards but miraculous for my circumstances. Despite self-doubt clouding my artistic confidence, I accepted the project with externally projected assurance. Back in my tiny room, staring at the blank canvas purchased with Catherine's deposit, paralyzing fear struck. What if I failed to deliver? What if my artistic ability had evaporated along with financial security? Ryan's encouragement provided essential perspective. You're not creating the Sistine Chapel. You're making a meaningful portrait for someone who already appreciates your style. Over 3 weeks, working during early mornings before coffee shop shifts and late evenings after returning home, the fisherman's portrait emerged. Catherine's father's weathered face took shape against a background of dawnlit ocean, his eyes reflecting both weariness and unwavering purpose. I incorporated subtle elements from photographs Catherine provided: the specific knot he used for rigging, the way he held his weathered hands, the particular angle of his cap against morning light. When Catherine viewed the completed work, her emotional response confirmed I'd captured something essential beyond mere likeness. "That's him," she whispered, tears forming. "Not just how he looks, but who he is." Her enthusiastic response led to something unexpected: a second commission request, this time from her business partner who wanted a similar gift for his retiring mother. Word of mouth began generating interest among their professional connections, creating a small but growing client list. Meanwhile, Tara suggested an opportunity I hadn't considered. The community center near our apartment sought part-time art instructors for adult education classes. "They pay isn't great," she warned, "but it's steady and might connect you with more potential clients." The program director reviewed my portfolio and offered 2 evening classes weekly: portrait fundamentals and expressive painting techniques. My first session attracted only 3 students, their varied skill levels and expectations challenging my untested teaching abilities. Yet something unexpected happened as I guided others through creative processes. My own artistic convictions strengthened. Articulating techniques and principles reinforced their value in my practice. Students' questions prompted deeper consideration of artistic choices I'd previously made intuitively. "You explain complex concepts with unusual clarity," commented Martha, a retired teacher taking my portrait class. "Have you considered creating online tutorials?" Jessica offered to help develop my online presence, applying her music production knowledge to digital marketing principles. We created basic social media profiles focused exclusively on my artwork rather than personal content, establishing consistent posting schedules and engagement strategies. The first image to gain significant traction wasn't a polished studio portrait, but a candid sketch of Amber napping on our couch after a grueling hospital shift, her vulnerability and exhaustion captured with empathetic precision. The post generated hundreds of shares and comments like, "This is what essential workers really look like," and "You've captured the healthcare crisis in a single image." Across town, the competing coffee shop owner, ironically my regular customer at Westfield Artisan, offered wall space for displaying artwork with reasonable commission rates on sales. This arrangement provided both visibility and potential income without gallery overhead costs. These small opportunities gradually coalesced into sustainable structure: morning coffee shop shifts, afternoon commission work, evening classes twice weekly, weekend sales presence at the competing cafe. Income remained modest but increasingly reliable, allowing basic expenses coverage with occasional small additions to savings. The pivotal moment in this fragile stability came when Amber experienced family emergency requiring immediate travel. "I can cover your portion of rent this month," I offered without hesitation, suddenly realizing the statement's significance. For the first time since leaving home, I possessed financial margin beyond immediate survival needs. Ryan noticed the shift in my confidence before I fully recognized it myself. "You're walking differently," he commented during dinner at an affordable restaurant. Our first proper date night in months. "Like the weights distributed more evenly now." "I made more from art than barista work last month," I admitted. "Not by much, but the trend line is promising." As spring arrived, Ryan's lease approached renewal, prompting conversation about our relationship's future. "We could find a place together," he suggested cautiously. "Combine resources, share studio space for our creative work. Financially strategic and personally appealing." The prospect of leaving my tiny room produced unexpected ambivalence. That difficult space represented hard-won independence, a concrete manifestation of choosing authenticity over security. Yet practical benefits of cohabitation with someone who genuinely supported my artistic journey proved compelling. We found a one-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood between our current locations, not as upscale as my parents' community, but significantly safer than Riverside. The modest space included a converted sun porch perfect for studio use, with natural light I desperately missed. As moving plans progressed, I faced a significant decision: whether to contact my parents now that I'd achieved modest stability. Our communication had dwindled to occasional terse text messages confirming continued estrangement. Pride urged continued silence until achieving irrefutable success by their standards, unlikely given my chosen field and values. Grandmother Eleanor provided characteristic wisdom during our weekly phone calls. "Reconciliation doesn't require agreement, Madison. It requires mutual respect for different perspectives." "They don't respect my choices," I countered. "Perhaps not," she acknowledged. "But have you respected theirs? Their priorities reflect their own experiences and fears, just as yours reflect your values and dreams." Her perspective challenged my righteousness. While defending my artistic integrity, I dismissed their practical concerns as superficial, rather than recognizing legitimate differences in defining security and success. This reflection process was interrupted by an unexpected encounter at the grocery store. My mother examining produce 3 aisles from where I stood, frozen in shock. Her appearance struck me forcefully. She looked older, more tired than I remembered, vulnerability visible beneath her carefully maintained exterior. When our eyes met, mutual recognition triggered simultaneous hesitation. For precious seconds, we remained suspended between approach and retreat before she cautiously moved toward me. "Madison," she acknowledged, voice carefully neutral. "Mom," I replied, matching her tone. Awkward silence expanded between us until she gestured toward my shopping basket. "You're buying groceries. That's good." The absurd observation broke tension, triggering unexpected laughter. Generally considered necessary for survival, her smile appeared genuine if tentative. "You look well. Healthier than at Christmas." "You saw me at Christmas?" "I drove by the coffee shop," she admitted. "Just to check. You seemed thin." The revelation that she'd monitored my welfare from distance without approaching complicated my narrative of complete abandonment. "I'm doing better," I offered. "Teaching art classes, building commission work, moving in with Ryan next month." Something flickered across her expression. Concern, disapproval, or perhaps simple surprise at life developments she'd missed. "Your father would like to see you," she said finally. "We both would. Perhaps dinner next week? At the house?" The invitation carried layers of potential, reconciliation, judgment, conditional acceptance based on perceived stability. I balanced protective distance against genuine desire for familial connection. "I'd need to check my schedule," I hedged. "Teaching commitments." "Of course," she nodded, respecting boundaries I'd never successfully established while living under their roof. "Text me what works." As we parted with awkward waves rather than customary hugs, I recognized something fundamental had shifted. Not just my circumstances, but my internal landscape. I no longer required their approval to validate my choices. Independence had transformed from terrifying freefall to earned achievement. That evening, I texted acceptance of their dinner invitation, establishing parameters that would have been unthinkable months earlier. Can do Tuesday at 7. Need to leave by 9 for class preparation. My mother's response came immediately. Tuesday works. Looking forward to seeing you. No commentary about missed family time. No passive-aggressive reference to my scheduled departure. Simple acknowledgement of boundaries suggesting potential for evolved relationship. The dinner invitation represented neither capitulation nor victory, but possibility. The chance to build connection based on mutual respect, rather than financial dependence or conditional support. Whether that possibility would materialize remained uncertain, but my capacity to engage from position of earned independence rather than defensive justification marked genuine progress. As Ryan and I packed my minimal belongings for our shared apartment, I rediscovered the portrait of Mrs. Abernathy, my childhood work my parents had professionally framed. The piece represented something essential I'd nearly forgotten. Before our relationship fractured over definitions of success, they had recognized and celebrated my artistic gift. That recognition existed alongside their practical concerns, complex and contradictory, but genuinely felt. Perhaps reconciliation wouldn't require abandoning artistic integrity for practical security, but rather finding mutual respect for fundamentally different approaches to building meaningful lives. The path forward remained uncertain, but for the first time since leaving home, uncertainty felt like opportunity rather than threat. 1 year after my parents delivered their ultimatum, I stood in an apartment that truly felt like home. Ryan and I had transformed the modest space into a sanctuary that honored both our creative pursuits, his photography equipment sharing harmoniously with my painting supplies, walls displaying our work alongside treasured finds from local artists. My artistic career had stabilized into sustainable balance. Teaching positions at 2 community centers provided reliable base income, while portrait commissions and occasional gallery sales offered both creative fulfillment and financial supplements. I'd resigned from barista work 6 months earlier, marking transition from survival job to creative career, not financially luxurious but authentically aligned with my values and abilities. The upcoming dinner with my parents represented the culmination of gradual reconciliation process begun that day in the grocery store. Our initial reunion had been awkward but civil, conversation carefully avoiding controversial subjects while establishing basic reconnection. Subsequent monthly dinners gradually expanded communication boundaries, allowing limited discussion of my artistic work alongside their business ventures. I'd discovered my father secretly visited the coffee shop exhibition of my work, examining each piece methodically, though never purchasing. My mother occasionally sent links to creative business articles with neutral messages like, "Thought this might interest you." These small gestures suggested willingness to acknowledge my path without fully embracing its validity. For my part, I developed greater appreciation for their perspective. Financial security wasn't merely materialistic fixation, but genuine concern for my well-being in an uncertain economy. Their professional focus wasn't shallow status seeking, but deeply ingrained belief that achievement provided protection against life's unpredictability, a value formed through their own experiences and challenges. We remained fundamentally different in defining success and measuring life's worth, but increasingly, we found ways to acknowledge these differences without demanding conversion to shared viewpoint. The chance encounter that reignited our connection had occurred exactly as I'd found solid footing. Perhaps coincidence, perhaps cosmic timing, or perhaps simply the natural intersection of parallel journeys working through separate processes of adjustment and growth. The dinner marking our 1-year estrangement anniversary carried symbolic weight for all involved. I selected outfit carefully, professional but artistic, demonstrating respect for occasion without disguising authentic self. Ryan offered to accompany me, but this particular threshold needed crossing alone. Driving toward my childhood home, memories surfaced with increasing intensity. Family dinners before career expectations, complicated relationships, childhood art projects my parents proudly displayed, holiday gatherings, untainted by performance metrics. Beneath our conflicts existed foundation of genuine connection, worth preserving despite profound disagreements. My parents greeted me with cautious warmth, their home exactly as remembered yet somehow smaller than my mental image. Mom had prepared my favorite meal, subtle acknowledgement of continuing maternal care despite our strained relationship. Dad opened conversation with uncharacteristic directness. "You look well, Madison. Healthy, settled." "I am," I confirmed. The teaching positions provide stability, while commission work allows creative growth. "Ryan's photography business seems promising as well," Mom added, surprising me with knowledge of my partner's career progression. "His commercial client list is impressive." Their research into our professional development revealed ongoing interest despite estrangement. Throughout dinner, conversation maintained surface-level pleasantness while carefully navigating around deeper issues that had triggered our separation. As dessert concluded, Dad cleared his throat with familiar preparation for significant statements. "We've been following your progress," he acknowledged. "The community center program you developed for disadvantaged youth was featured in the local paper." "Art accessibility matters to me," I replied. "Creative expression shouldn't be reserved for the privileged." "You've become quite responsible," he continued, the compliment undermined by implied surprise. "Perhaps not in the field we envisioned, but successfully establishing yourself nonetheless." The backhanded praise crystallized everything I'd learned throughout our separation. My father genuinely believed he was offering highest commendation by acknowledging my responsibility, yet remained fundamentally incapable of recognizing different but equally valid definitions of success. Rather than igniting familiar defensiveness, his limited perspective prompted unexpected compassion. My parents operated from deeply ingrained beliefs about security and achievement, views unlikely to fundamentally change despite our reconciliation efforts. "I appreciate your recognition," I responded carefully. "My definition of success includes financial stability but prioritizes creative fulfillment and meaningful impact. Those values guided my choices, even when the path proved difficult." "We worried," Mom interjected. "When you left with almost nothing. When we drove past your apartment in that neighborhood, you knew where I lived?" "We kept tabs," Dad admitted. "From distance, respecting your independence while ensuring your safety." The revelation they'd monitored my situation without intervening revealed complex reality beneath my narrative of complete abandonment. Their concern persisted alongside their determination to enforce life lessons about financial responsibility, contradictory impulses existing simultaneously within complicated parental love. "I needed to discover my capabilities without safety net," I explained. "The struggle was necessary, if extremely difficult. I'm stronger for having navigated it independently." "We may have been overly rigid," Mom conceded, the closest approximation to apology her personality allowed. "Our concerns about artistic careers stem from genuine understanding of financial realities." "And I, perhaps, underestimated those realities," I acknowledged. "Building sustainable creative practice requires business acumen alongside artistic skill. I've learned to respect practical considerations without abandoning creative integrity." This exchange represented our most honest communication since reconciliation began. Mutual recognition of legitimate perspectives without demanding agreement or conversion. As traditional parent-child dynamics transformed into adult relationship between individuals with different but equally valid worldviews, boundaries established themselves organically. When I referenced my scheduled departure time, neither parent attempted guilt-inducing retention tactics. Dad asked about upcoming exhibitions with genuine interest rather than financial assessment. Mom offered container of leftovers without commentary about proper nutrition or budgetary concerns. Our goodbye included awkward but sincere hugs, physical manifestation of emotional stance, maintaining connection while respecting separate paths. Neither complete reconciliation nor continued estrangement, but sustainable middle ground honoring both shared history and individual autonomy. Driving away from childhood home toward apartment shared with someone who truly supported my authentic self, I reflected on transformative journey triggered by their ultimatum. The painful choice between financial security and personal integrity had ultimately freed me from limitations I hadn't recognized, not just external parental expectations, but internal doubts about my capabilities and worth. Family relationships proved more complex than simple dichotomy of supportive versus toxic. My parents loved me according to their understanding of parental responsibility, preparing me for world as they perceived it, rather than nurturing my vision of different possibilities. Their methods reflected genuine concern filtered through limited perspective rather than deliberate cruelty or conditional love. Similarly, chosen family demonstrated potential for different support systems based on mutual respect rather than obligation. Ryan, Jessica, Amber, Tara each offered assistance without expectation of conformity, creating foundation for authentic connection impossible within rigidly defined frameworks. Most importantly, navigating from desperate survival to sustainable stability through creative work validated core belief that motivated my original choice. Meaningful purpose ultimately proves more valuable than material accumulation or status. Achievement. Financial security matters, but primarily as foundation supporting authentic expression rather than defining life's worth. 1 year after facing devastating ultimatum, I'd constructed life aligned with personal values despite significant obstacles. The journey featured moments of crushing doubt, physical hardship, and genuine despair, yet produced resilience and clarity impossible without these challenges. My parents' ultimatum intended to force practical conformity instead catalyzed authentic independence. Their withdrawal of support designed to demonstrate art's impracticality instead revealed its essential value beyond financial metrics. Their conditional acceptance inadvertently facilitated discovery of unconditional self-respect more valuable than external validation. As I settled into teaching preparation that evening, organizing materials for students pursuing their own creative exploration, profound gratitude surfaced for journey initially experienced as devastating rejection. Without that painful catalyst, comfortable security might have prevented discovering capabilities, connections, and convictions that now defined my life's authentic architecture. I wonder, has family pressure ever forced you to choose between security and authenticity? Did you stay the comfortable course or risk everything for what truly mattered? Share your experience in the comments below. If my journey resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more stories about finding your path even when it means walking alone. Remember, sometimes the hardest choice leads to the most meaningful destination. Thank you for listening to my story. And whatever path you're navigating, I hope you find both security and authenticity in perfect balance.